There are two types of people in the world. Those who follow a herd and those who prefer to stand out. The lone wolves, if you may. Or, in this case, the lone lion. Now, for those who prefer to stand out, this here is a distinctive vehicle that will suit their taste, the Peugeot 5008 SUV. Now, in this video, we will find out what sets this vehicle apart from the rest. Let's do this. Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'd like you to click that subscribe button for your regular dose of Philippine automotive content. If you're my subscriber already, well guys, sit back, relax, click that like button and enjoy the show. Also special thanks to Peugeot Philippines for lending me the Peugeot 5008 SUV to do this review. So, in a country that is dominated by Asian car makers, how does a relatively new Euro player stand out and gain attention? Well, for starters, it can combine quirky good looks with a solid build quality expected of a Euro vehicle at a price that doesn't require you to sell a kidney. Now that, my friends, is exactly what the Peugeot 5008 SUV delivers. Oh yeah, and by the way, it's Peugeot, not Pugot, okay? Just to be clear. Now, the Peugeot 5008 SUV is well priced for a Euro vehicle because it retails for only 2,260,000 Philippine pesos. Now, I'm sure that some of you guys are already thinking that for that kind of money, you'd rather buy a 7-seater SUV from a Japanese car maker, but hear me out. You see, normally the 7-seater SUVs coming from these Japanese car brands are fed with diesel fuel, and at the time of this filming, the price of diesel is much higher than the price of gasoline. Now, aside from the fuel cost, there's also a certain subset of people out there who prefer to have a unique looking ride, something that won't get lost in a mall parking area, and believe it or not guys, I'm actually one of them. In fact, I find the front fascia of this Peugeot 5008 SUV to look absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it has this feline, animalistic look to it, and it has that artistic flair, which is a testament to its French roots. It gets these sharp-looking LED headlights here, and it even has these fangs on the side, which acts as the DRLs and the turn signals. Now, the 5008 SUV also gets cornering lights, which is highly effective at keeping you safe when you're rounding corners at night. Now, the 5008 SUV is also equipped with what they call a frameless front grille here, which, if you put them all together guys, just gives this vehicle a really unique and distinctive look that I find absolutely stunning. When you look at the side profile of the 5008 SUV, you can see that it didn't go for the bulky SUV look. Instead, its side silhouette looks more like a wagon or an MPV, which is a throwback to the first generation 5008. Now, this thing might look low and sleek, and it might have been classified as an MPV back then, but it has been reclassified as a crossover SUV in 2017. Now, of course, guys, we do get niceties here like power folding side mirrors with LED turn signals and those Peugeot Lion puddle lamps, as well as a set of 18-inch alloy wheels that are wrapped in 55 series tires. Now behind these wheels, we do get four-wheel disc brakes, although the suspension kind of surprised me a bit. You see, we get MacPherson front suspension here, but only a torsion beam for the rear. Although the bigger surprise is, yeah, it doesn't really drive like you have a torsion beam at the back. Now, more of that in the driving impressions later on. Now, this 5008 SUV might look low and sleek, but it does have a healthy ground clearance of 190 millimeters, so it's safe to say that it can easily clear minor obstacles and light floods. The 5008 SUV has a unique looking derriere because of its LED taillights here that are shaped to look like a lion's paws. However guys, I'm not really too fond of the faux twin exhaust tips found on the rear bumper because I just feel that, yeah, this thing would look much better without it. Now guys, when you pop open the power liftgate with hands-free function, you'll notice that you will get a generous amount of cargo space. You see, we get 952 liters of cargo capacity here, which as you can see is good enough for 3 medium-sized luggage. Now there's also some more room to spare around it guys, so that is a generous amount of cargo space. But if you do need more space than that, well, the second row seats can fold down to give you over 2,000 liters of trunk capacity. Now, the 5008 SUV is classified as a 7-seater crossover, although the third row seats can be individually removed in case you need a deeper cargo space here at the back, or if you just need a couple of extra chairs outside your car. The 5008 SUV is equipped with a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged gasoline motor that pumps out 165 horsepower and 240 Newton-meters of torque. Now, the power is sent to the front wheels via a 6-speed automatic transmission. Now, this might be a front-wheel drive layout, guys, but it also comes with drive modes such as normal, snow, mud, and sand modes. Now, being a front-wheel drive layout, the only way I can see the 5008 SUV to manage those terrain would be to manage the traction control. Now, another bit of good news here is the fuel consumption because the 5008 SUV has a decent level of fuel economy. On a city drive with an average speed of 35 kilometers per hour, I was able to get 9 kilometers per liter, and on a highway run at an average speed of 65 kilometers per hour, I was able to get 16.6 kilometers per liter. Now that is pretty good for a 7-seater mid-size crossover. Guys, if you're used to Asian cars, then you're in for a bit of a culture shock when you step inside the cabin of the Peugeot 5008 SUV. You see, the layout is quirky and different, and it might take some getting used to, guys. Well, I've had this car for a week now, so I'm quite used to it, but it did take me a couple of days to fully master the controls of this vehicle. Now, the first thing that got my attention here, guys, is the shape of the steering wheel. I mean, this is not a regular round steering wheel, and it's so freaking tiny. I mean, the shape of this thing reminds me of the steering wheels found in Formula 1 race cars, minus the tons of buttons found there. And we also have these fighter jet style paddle shifters found behind the wheel, which is absolute eye candy for me, guys. Now, the second thing that caught my attention in this 5008 SUV is the shape of the shifter. Now, guys, I don't know if it's a French thing, and pardon my French, guys, but is it really a French thing that the shifter should be shaped like a slightly bent phallus? Anyway, let's move on from that, guys. Here's the thing. After driving this for several days already, well, this tiny and oddly shaped steering wheel just feels so natural in my hand, such that I would now feel kind of odd when I go back to a regular round steering wheel. Now, and the shifter, that slightly bent phallus shaped shifter, yeah, it now feels so good in my hand. It really feels so natural inside my palm. Yeah, just don't stroke it too much, okay? Now, guys, other niceties found here in the cabin of the 5008 SUV is we do have a gorgeous, fully digital iCockpit instrument gauge cluster there that you can customize when it comes to design, and it also has a navigation mode that comes with 3D navigation. Now that, my friends, is really, really cool. Now when you move over to the infotainment system here, we get a touchscreen, a 10-inch touchscreen infotainment system with the right features like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and we also have the image of a 180-degree view camera. Now guys, that's pretty quirky for me because I've seen vehicles with 360-degree view cameras, I've seen vehicles with a reverse camera, but this is the first time that I've seen a car that comes with a 180-degree view camera. Now, that might be quirky, guys, but it works, and that's what's important. You see, what this 5008 SUV's cockpit is showing to all of us is, yeah, it's trying to show you that you should question what you think is normal. Because sometimes things that appear quirky at first actually are more intuitive and are easier to use in the long run. Now, other quirky items here, guys, are, let's say, the controls of the climate system, the climate control. It takes some getting used to, guys, but yeah, once you get used to it, then it's going to be pretty easy to operate. Now, other niceties here include a wireless charge pad. We also have an electronic park brake, but we don't get an auto hold feature, which is a bit of a bummer for me already because, yeah, I would have appreciated an auto hold function in this 5008 SUV. Now, we also have here a couple of cup holders, which I will subject to my 600 ml clean canteen test. So let's see. As you can see, guys, the 5008 SUV completely passes my clean canteen test. Now, when you look around this cabin, guys, you'll see that, yeah, it's a quirky mix of cabin materials here. We do get a soft touch plastic dashboard here. We do get some hard plastics on the sides of the center tunnel. We also have some leather inserts here on the center armrest, as well as the elbow rest on the door cards. But I find it really fun that we also have what appears to be fabric, denim fabric material here. Yeah, this feels like denim fabric on the middle dashboard and on the door cards, which, yeah, it's something that you wouldn't expect to see in a premium European vehicle, but surprisingly, it works, and it really gives this 5008 SUV's cockpit that unique French flavor. The second row seats of the Peugeot 5008 SUV is roomy and spacious, and it's made even better by the fact that we get a large panoramic sunroof here. However, I did notice that the sunshade of the panoramic sunroof is a little bit on the thin side. So yes, when you're driving on a really hot summer day here in the Philippines, yeah, some of the heat will make its way into the cabin from the panoramic sunroof. Now guys, the 5008 SUV is a premium family vehicle, and as a premium family vehicle, it also gets some premium safety bits and driver assist aids. As you're now seeing on your screen, guys, we do get a robust set of safety features here and driver assist aids, although I did notice that we are missing emergency braking, which is a bit of a bummer for me because, yes, emergency braking is another layer of safety and security, especially when you're driving in today's times. Now, as for the amenities here in the second row, guys, well, it is pretty well equipped. We do get a couple of rear AC vents here. It even has its own blower control. We have a USB charge port right there in the middle, and we also have a center armrest here that comes with a couple of cup holders and even a pad where you can park your smartphone. Now, as for the absolute space here, guys, oops, sorry about that. Oh, there you go. You have to be more refined when you're closing that thing. Not like a Neanderthal like me. Anyway, guys, yeah, as for the absolute space here at the back, well, if there's nobody seated in the third row seats, well, you get a good amount of space. Knee room is around 6-7 inches. Headroom is a little bit lower at around 4.5 inches here. But if you do have passengers in the third row, then you can slide the seat forward a little bit, give them some more leg room, and that will shrink your knee room down to around 4 inches, which is still pretty decent for, let's say, somebody who's as tall as I am. If you're wondering, guys, I am 5'6". The 5008 SUV is a 7-seater crossover, and although the third row seats can be individually removed and they look kind of small, I was quite surprised to see that, yeah, the third row seats are quite spacious for somebody who's as tall as I am. You see, guys, I'm 5'6", and I still get a good 3 inches of knee room here, and the headroom is a good 4 inches. Now, this place is pretty comfortable, and the sitting position is not that tight because my knees is not that much higher than my hips. Now, I'm really surprised with this because I kind of expected that it's going to be really tight, that it's only going to be for kids, but for adults who are like maybe up to 5'8", yeah, they could sit here on the third row seats and still be quite comfortable. However, we don't get any AC vents here at the back, guys. So yes, it can get a little bit toasty here. So you may want to ask the front passengers to crank up the air conditioning if you're seated here in the third row. Alright guys, so the first thing that you'll notice when you're driving the 5008 is just how small the steering wheel is. I mean, the small size of this thing means that it's so easy to turn. It's much easier to turn than, let's say, something with a larger wheel. And the weird shape of this wheel feels so natural in the hand. I mean, yeah, I've been driving this for a week now, guys. And yeah, the shape of this thing, and I really couldn't see myself going back to a circular steering wheel, to be honest. Now the good thing here, the good news, guys, is the steering feel is on point. I mean, the response is sharp, see? Lane changes are quick enough, and it has a good amount of heft. I mean, the perfect amount of heft. It's not so heavy when you're driving around in the city, but here on the highway, well, the heft is there, so you have a good amount of control over the car. Now the steering wheel is also mounted quite low. It's pretty low, guys, so it doesn't feel like I'm driving a crossover or an SUV. It feels like I'm driving a race car, coupled with the shape of the steering wheel plus the paddle shifters. Man, yeah, this thing is such a hoot to drive. Now, as for the acceleration, guys, well, acceleration response is brisk. I mean, this thing, yeah, it's quick. It's pretty quick, and the transmission is brilliant. See, a quick tap on the gas pedal will give you a quick downshift, a little bit more of a tap, then you get a 2-step downshift here, and it just gives you the goods. Now, you could take this to illegal speeds pretty quickly, and all of this are happening while you're in normal mode. See, the 5008 also has a sport mode, and if you toggle sport mode, then you have a meteor sound. See, hear that? Wow. Yeah, you have a meteor sound coming from the engine. And yeah, you do know that you are putting the pace down, baby. Yeah, wow. 5008 normal mode feels like the sport mode of other vehicles already. So I don't really use sport mode too much. That's kind of weird, especially for me. Because I always put these media vehicles, these test vehicles in sport mode, but I don't really see the need to do that here in the 5008 because normal mode by itself is already brisk and responsive. Now as for the NVH, well, the NVH of the 5008 tells you that you are indeed in a Euro car. I mean, wow, this thing is quiet inside. There's hardly any highway noise coming into the cabin. And you know, when I go over like bumps, potholes and stuff, I'm quite surprised that it's very composed. You know, it doesn't really jar too much considering that we have a rear torsion beam here. So I don't really know what sort of suspension tuning the French did with their vehicle, but dude, it works. It just works. Now another aspect of the driving segment that really surprised me with this 5008 is the handling. You see guys, that's one of the advantages of having a low and sleek SUV instead of something that's so bulky and so tall. You see, when I took corners and curves at a faster clip, yeah, this thing felt composed, a body roll was minimized for a crossover, and yeah, taking corners were pretty tight. I mean, dude, yeah, this thing doesn't really feel like you're driving an SUV. When you're going around twisties, it feels like you're driving like a sport wagon, something like that, like something from Subaru or Mazda even. So yeah, the 5008's handling, the tuning that they did with this thing, guys, it is really spot on. Now as for the safety bits of this thing, well, the driver assist aids of the Peugeot 5008 will always keep you safe, guys, because it is pretty nervous, in fact, especially the lane keep assist. You know, it quickly detects the lane markers and will always keep you in the lane. And if ever you switch lanes without activating your turn signal, then the steering wheel will aggressively fight you to keep you in the lane. It's one of the more aggressive systems that I've tested so far. And you know what, guys? That is actually good news. Because yeah, you don't want to change lanes without activating your turn signal. Yeah, so it will always keep you safe. Overall, guys, this Peugeot 5008 provided me with a surprisingly pleasant and athletic drive. I mean, it was able to keep up with my driving style, and I didn't have to activate sport mode most of the time. I mean, right now I'm even in normal mode, and this thing has a good level of response. See? Now, I love the fact that the Peugeot 5008 did all that with the level of refinement that you'd expect from a proud French vehicle. After driving the Peugeot 5008 SUV for a week, I must admit that I am quite impressed. It has that drive character and performance that can rival the offerings from BMW and Mazda, so it is safe to say that this is one of the best that I've tested. It's a good option for those who need 7 seats in a crossover that drives like a sport wagon. And guys, the fact that it comes with this unique French design that surely stands out is just, well, icing on the cake. Thanks for watching.